Yeah. All right, everybody. It's a new year.
Happy
So,
New Year, Matt.
I'm always about each year, instead of making resolutions, but especially about my yoga practice, I often want to ask myself the question, what do I want to get from my yoga practice? Right. And as you know, I hope that you're getting that. I want you to get the physical benefits of a yoga practice, but even more than that, on more levels than that. And so that's like what that is. And the one thing I'll tell you is that yoga will always give back to you as much as you put in. It just may not be in exactly, you might want to get one thing from it. And as you work for that, it might give something else back. Right. So it's not like you get a direct, and especially if you are open enough to watch what the benefits are and notice them. Because a lot of the benefits of yoga are more like, in my opinion, they're more like, and this sounds kind of barfy, but I think it's a good example of a flower opening. Meaning that if you and I stare at a plant, it moves so slow that you never see it open, but all of a sudden it's open. And that's how progress in yoga and asana actually, in my opinion, often goes. There's the more overt ones, like, oh, look, now I can do that pose that I couldn't. But what I think are the more important and deeper benefits are actually coming from that it moves slower than that. And part of what you're honing as a yogi is the awareness enough to notice small change, to notice small awakenings, right? And also, and this I think is the hardest part, is to believe in them, right? And that's really hard. Like, wait, yeah, I just learned how to do it. It doesn't have all this implication. And the answer is yes, it does, especially if you're willing to be open to it. So one of the things about believing, if you start to believe that you're the best yogi ever born in the universe, I would say chances are you've gotten out of control with your belief system, right? However, I mean, so for most of us, that's not our problem. Is most of us lack confidence in the importance of our own yoga practice, right? That actually the issue for most of us is from the other direction, is that you're not willing to take your experience and believe it has profound implication. And another thing I want to give as a way to protect you from what stops you, or helps you with what stops you, is that believing in your own experience doesn't necessarily make you right, especially for other people, right? So a lot of people get overconfident about their yoga practice because they think that somehow that means they know something in relationship to somebody else, or all these things. It's like, no, confidence and belief in your own experience is exactly that. And it is the energy that transforms, right? When you're willing to see and open, because there's a great line that I kind of want to teach from all year again, is from Prashant Iyengar. And the line goes like this: there's I can't teach you what you don't know. In other words, that if you're stuck in a certain worldview and you think you know stuff, I won't be able to teach you or show experiences beyond what you already believe in, right? So I can't teach you what you don't know, but what you don't know could be happening. And that means that there's more happening in your yoga poses than you think, right? And there's a lot of subtlety to them. So I can't teach you what you don't know, but what you don't know could be happening. What's happening, this is the hard one, may be more profound than what you know. Meaning, oh, that's just that I can now push that way. It's like, wait, there's probably more going on, and it's more profound than what you know. So I can't teach you what you don't know. What you don't know could be happening. What's happening may be more profound than your mind even admits. Cultivate the happening, right? So in a yoga practice, you're actually trying to practice over and over to cultivate the happening. So the happening of poses retrains the depth of your perceiving mind, right? Because your mind, because it likes to control everything, just like everyone else's, your mind is going to want to shrink the world for control as opposed to open it up, right? And this is a process that goes on in yoga practice. So sit up straight and tall. So like, I don't know what you remember. I think it's not what the teacher teaches, it's what the student takes and realizes. So I've been telling you for a long time that the sensation of allowing is a mind body sensation that you should be able to have travel a form of relief through your whole body once you allow. So I've been trying to get you to figure out how to have the allowing energy to be a mind body sensation. And simultaneously, I've been telling you that it opens the door to another level of what you are, right? So there's energy that gets blocked unless you allow. Now, what's really confusing about that is as you allow in your yoga poses, that doesn't mean you don't work. Well, you still have to work hard. So the realization of the allowing energy with the asserting energy is part of it's at the heart of a yoga pose. So as you sit in center and notice that you can let go a little bit more when you exhale, and there's a reason for that, it's your parasympathetic nervous system that gets more activated, the quieter part of your nervous system, the one that balances you out. So you're just noticing your exhalation as a release. Now, soften around the temples of jaw, the inside of the mouth before you start the asana. So you're trying to follow the relief of your exhalation to where your brain wants to grip what's outside of you. Because part of the opportunity of an asana practice is to teach you how to go inward as a precondition of moving outward. So you're trying to soften up, and it's hard for me because I'm talking, so my mouth and my tongue are too active, but not yours. So keep your lips together and your teeth slightly apart, the tongue in the lower palate. Really registering your exhale. You're kind of emptying out, not just your mind. And from this energy, without starting to effort, feel your feet on the floor, on the foot pedals, your sitting bones. Just be there where the tips of your shoulders are, where your head balances over your neck over your torso. So you're just being. Remember, prana is going to follow your quiet mind, which is dissolving into consciousness. Prana is going to follow consciousness more than it follows breath. So you're just trying to be in the whole vessel. And then cometh the assertion. Start to hit down, ground your feet a little bit more, hit your sitting bones down, lift up through the core of you, whatever the core is for you, and you're in practice now, right? And now you're spreading. So you're broadening across the back of the front of the chest as you're lifting up. You're broadening across the back ribs, creating more space between your shoulder blades, hitting down through your sitting bones, down through the bottoms of your feet and more your heels. As you rise up, re-soften around the temples, the jaw, the inside of the mouth. Let go of your day and prepare to do yoga, to activate more of you in movement. More does not come from your mind. Less does. Good. And then lift your sternum up towards your chin and take your chin down over your sternum. So you're trying to make a very quiet inward action, trying to bring in more assertion in this position to allow you to feel more. So just notice the clarity of it. Let your breath nudge into your rib cage, whatever breathing you're doing. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. And so on these next couple of breaths, I'm going to want you to lift your sternum again and drop your chin. I want you to just pay attention to the way the breath, whatever breath you're taking through your mouth, through your nose, whatever, how your breath nudges into your rib cage. Because I can tell you, there's a whole bunch of potential from your spine if the muscles between your ribs can get a little bit more pliable, a little bit more responsive. And one of the best ways for those intercostal muscles to get kind of woken up from their nap, right? Because you don't actively use your intercostal muscles very much, is letting the breath nudge into them. So in these next couple of inhalations, lift your sternum some and drop your chin, because that's going to make your rib cage more alert. Right? So you're just following. And once you start to feel the inhalation come up against the rib cage, try to allow right there. So the last like 2% or 5% of your inhalation is moving your ribs and those muscles a little bit, and then back out. And there is something about the repetition of that intersection. So instead of trying to take big, huge, deep breaths, you're nudging in there and getting it a little bit like you're waking someone up gently, right? You're just trying to get it so you start to feel, and especially it's not just the push in, it's also the release of the exhalation. So you want that where the last 5% of your inhalation hits the rib cage to be as seamless as when you start to let go of the exhalation. So that as it comes back to where you normally are, you're watching that extra 5% of responsiveness in your rib cage. So now what's important is to learn how to start to use more asana without disrupting that softer, quieter expansion and contraction or release. And so now on these next couple ones, start to press down to your sitting bones more. Rise up, but don't let that harden this gentle exchange between your breath and your intercostal muscles. And then keep that still being the suppleness. Lift your sternum, broaden between the shoulder blades, all those things, and hitting down through your feet, being aware of your feet, hitting down through your sitting bones. So now you're trying to keep the responsiveness of the intercostal muscles congruent and not having them get harder when you start to use more of your body and your legs. This is going to get harder and harder as the poses get more complicated. Good. And then release. So again, let's get like woke up in the chair a little bit, right? Because the lightness that you get from moving side to side, so go to your left and then to your right, is similar in quality. So I'm lifting up a little bit. I'm just kind of, right, is similar in quality to the responsiveness I wanted you to feel in the rib cage, right? So this lightness, right? So when I lift up, this strains down, right? I still want to feel that lightness, right? And that the lightness in those intercostal muscles and the softness in the inside of my mouth are connected, right? So you're really trying to pay attention, right? And so remember, there's more happening in your poses than you're aware of, than you know, right? And so we're just cultivating the happening. Okay, so now I want you to hit down even more with your sitting bones and feet and lift up through the core. So the way that downward energy integrates with upward energy, right, is in every single yoga pose. And most students, not in our situation, don't study it directly. They hope that the repetition of all the poses will actually get them more supple at this level. But for us to have high quality pranic yoga practice, right, energy yoga practice, we have to be aware of it more directly. So this has to do with, like, if you push down too hard with your feet and make it too physical, you won't get the rise up. Not the same way, right? So you're trying to figure out how much down and how much up and then how much spread, right? And you're going back and forth and then release. So this action is on every level of the pose. So if you can put your hand on your leg or on the table, right? Being able to study moving in multiple directions, right now, down and up, right? Is I want you to, like, feel your hands on your knees or on your legs, right? And I want you to push down a little bit while lifting away and out of your wrists, right? And then release. So what? You kind of go, your brain goes, what? No, so feel the down, right? So I'm doing it on my legs now. Feel the down, and then learn how to move away from the pushing down. Because we're studying it, right? And this has to happen in our spine, and we're studying it in our limbs right now, right? So you get a sense of both. So, and then release. And so the drawing up, if you're focusing on the arms, right? The drawing up out of your wrists will start to activate over here, right? But one of the ways, if you push down too hard physically, it shuts everything down. So regardless of if your hands can go flat, right? For the down into the table or onto your legs, spread your palm as the down, as the expression of the down. Now lengthen your arms away from the spreading palm. Do this so subtly that it doesn't change your breath or doesn't restrict your breath. Now start to lift the sternum. I know these are little actions. They are all the way through every yoga pose. Good, and then release. So now I want you to try to practice that with your hands and your feet. So now we're in the zone where I can't spread the sole of my feet, right, of each foot. So I need to, like, go to even a different place than, and some of you are in the same situation as me, right? But now I'm going to go down with my hands, spreading my palms and trying to spread the soles of my feet as I rise up. So you're practicing and studying the downward dimension and the upward consequence. And you're now integrating your breath and being extra aware of the suppleness of the intercostal muscles. So you're going down, up, and letting the breath become freer. Because when your ribs are more pliable, your breath is freer. Good, and then release. So now I want you to, I know these things seem so like, we've done this a zillion times. And the answer is yes. Hopefully you've done it a zillion times, and now it's a zillion plus one, right? Because there's no end to the learning. The down energy and the up energy. So I want you to push down on your legs, right? So I'm doing it the way I can make the best contact is with my forearms on my legs, right? And I'm watching the down, and as soon as I start pushing down, something starts to activate in my chest, right? And that's an up. But now I want to go down through my sitting bones, down through my feet, while lengthening my spine. Lengthening my spine. But I don't want to pay attention too much to the lift of my chest, because then I lose the down. I don't want to just focus on pressing down physically because I lose the up. These two movements are simultaneous. And that's what you want your inhalation to breathe into. You want your breath to help the down and the up. So you're pushing down, you're rising up, and then you're inviting your breath to be a more active player. To feel the down and the up. Good, and then release. So this down and up is it's in every pose. So take your left hand outside your right leg and the other hand behind you. So now, what I think that is often missed on a twist is that the inhalation, although it rises this part of your chest, it also presses your sits bone slightly down, right? So you're inhaling and feeling the down and the up. And then you're exhaling and revolving. So there's this constant kind of feeding the fire and turning the fire, right? So there's an expansion down and up. And then an exhalation. But as you, on this next inhalation, stay present with the bottoms of your feet, not just your sitting bones. So when you take the inhalation that goes down, you'll feel it in your lower pelvis for sure, but keep that connected to your feet. Feel the expansion in your chest, and then turn it some more. Good, and then come on back to center. Again, we're trying to get this to be central. I didn't realize how important the ribs were until I went to a really good body worker. I gotta lower my curtain here. He was a physical therapist, but he showed me that my ribs were much more alive than I thought, right? So again, I'm going down, I'm rising up. Right now, one of the reasons why, and I didn't do it on the first side, because Angar will have you take your right arm up, is to get the rise connected to the fall and then turn. So you got your arm goes up and then you bring it down because you're mirroring these fundamental forces in your pose, right? So then connect through your sitting bones, through your feet. Lift the chest, right? Don't lift the chest and steal from your legs. And then let your breath connect you both down and up. And then your exhale, you revolve. So you're really being conscious of filling the whole vessel. And then turning into length. And again. Good. And then come on back to center. So let me just quick lower my shade here. The sun just popped out here. Hopefully that works. All right, so now, so it's easy when you put your hands on the front of your knees and you hit your femur bone, your knees back into your pelvis, right? And lift your chest. Again, you have down because you're adding more grounding on your knees, and you have an up. The problem with this is when you push on your knees, your mind tends to leave your feet. So I want you to push back on your knees, stay connected with your heels to the ground, hit into the knees, and watch the expansion of the chest. Now I'm going to differentiate my sitting bones from my lower abdomen. So I'm going to hit down with my sitting bones and rise up from my lower abdomen up through my chest. And then I'm going to open across here as I extend straight through my arms to go down through my palms, and I pull the awareness back up my arms to open my chest. So my palms are opening and the energy is coming back up my arm as I'm staying connected to my sitting bones and to my feet. Now, you've done this a lot of times. We're cultivating the happening. And breathe. Because in various forms, and then release, in various forms, this is going to be in every single thing we do. So lean over to the right. We've done this a lot, right? And usually I'm just trying to say, keep the space from the pubis bone through the spine long, and then opening across here, right? So I've been instructing more like that, right? So, but you know that now you extend, when you're leaning over, you're taking more gravity. The down is being obvious, but what's the up? Don't get confused just because you're horizontal more. There still has to be an up, right? And it has to come from the grounding. So the grounding, you're over to one side, lengthen, push down. My forearm is on my wheel, right? I don't know what you all are doing, right? But I'm hitting down there. I'm lengthening my upper arm up towards the sky as I hit down. As I do that more consciously, this opens, this lengthens, and then my arm comes up, right? But now I want to bring it back down, and now I want to open this down and up just with my chest. I'm going to turn a little bit because the up still has to happen, right? As the down has to continue to happen. And then it goes up, right? So we're really studying today, down to go up. Good, and then release. And if you like, we've done these moves a lot of times, right? But again, there's more happening than you know. There's more happening than I know. There's more happening than anybody knows, right? And when I said, the mind is more about loss or connected to loss, not gain, that's what it's supposed to do, right? So you're trying to get where your mind doesn't have to lead everything, right? So now go the other way. And in red, again, I'm not just plopping down on my arm and taking dead weight there, right? Taking dead weight in my arm would just be leaning on my forearm. I want to feel the pressure of the down and lengthen up, right? As soon as I do that, the energy of my shoulder blade has to change, right? And then go just straight down and let it collapse. When you find yourself going in just one direction, you're not doing yoga at its full potential. So I'm pushing down on my wheel and I'm lengthening my upper arm and I'm letting that start to open me. I'm lengthening this way from my pubis bone to my sternum out to the top of my head. And notice if I do that, I get more weight on my arm. But that means the length of this upper arm has to stay conscious because I don't want to just collapse as I'm lengthening this way, right? So I've got my shoulder blade engaged, my upper arm engaged, this lengthening, this opening, and taking the arm up. So I'm, usually I just teach this by saying, go down, keep awareness in the back hip, right? Now I'm doing way more than just tell you to push down through the back hip. There was always more happening than you knew. So this length supports the down, the up supports. And then when you hold these poses like this, you start to realize that there really isn't a distinction, that the down and the up are actually simultaneous. My body, my mind just didn't know how to receive it. That's why you cultivate the happening. Good, and then release. And come on up. So down and up happens when your arms are at your sides, right? You have to extend down through your fingertips, right? And I tell you to open the elbow pit, but to do it, broaden across the palm, right? And open the elbow pit to make sure you're not just driving down. Because if you just drive down, this will drop, right? This posture will drop and you'll be off balance. Remember, balance is not just whether you're going to fall or not. It's the equal distribution of presence. So you're going down with your arms, opening your elbow pits, opening your palms, and making sure that this down does not overwhelm this up. And you're breathing. Now hit down with your sitting bones and extend beyond the top of your head. But now hit down with your sitting bones, stay connected to your feet. Let that downward to your feet get informed by your arms, but lift the sternum up to make sure the upward energy isn't lost, and breathe into the vessel. So you're moving in multiple directions. Good, and then release. So versions of downward facing dog in a chair are just putting the same awareness at a 45-degree angle, right? So come forward. My hands are on the table. If I don't have a table, done this a million times, right? You're hitting down like this and you're trying to like study how the sitting bones have to stay down with the downward energy. How the chest has to lift, but it can't just stop at the chest. You need to extend out through your arms. But in order to stay with your sitting bones, you have to stretch out through your arms and fingertips, but broaden the palms in order to keep that connected to your sitting bones, right? There's a lot going on here. Lift the chest, engage the arms. Good. And then release. So those of you that can be on the table, right? And have the hands a little farther apart, because I want you to try to get length in your low back. Those of you that are just using I want you to come down a little farther. Instead of having your arms straight, you might have to use your forearms, right? But I want the attention to be on the lengthening of your low back away from your sitting bones and feet, right? So now and that's why I tell you to broaden across the sacrum a lot, because that guarantees when you try to broaden across your very low back, that guarantees the down, right? So you're broadening there and being aware of your inner heel. And then you're lifting off of that, pardon me, with the chest and broadening here. Because you're trying to keep the down and the up and breathing into the responsiveness of your rib cage and the intercostal muscles. Trying to open your spine's reach into the space around you. Because and then come on back up. The spine evolution has made just one juncture for your arms and your legs, out from the spine. But the energy of the spine itself is emanating out through all the ribs, right? So it just turns out that the most expressive one is the arm, right? So again, lean over, but now we're going to take time here. Don't take the arm up yet, right? You're going to take time here to make that subtle connection. So there's the down, but you're not collapsing down, right? And so there's an up in the upper arm. You're keeping this open. And then I want my next few breaths, instead of too quickly doing that, no, don't do it, right? Right? I want to get the rib cage has to adjust to the down and the rise as it receives the breath. So I'm putting my hand here just so I can remind my rib cage. So I'm paying attention. As I do, for me, my spine naturally wants to lengthen, both this way and this way. The pose is writing itself, W-R-I-T-I-N-G, because I'm following it. And then the arm goes up, but now it gets tricky. Now the arm goes over, and watch how the weight gets heavier on your arm, on the down arm. So you got to make sure the rise still happens. So the instruction is turn your belly button from the shoulder girdle up towards the ceiling. Shoulder blade stays connected to the sitting bones. Fingertips stretch into the ether. Good, and then release. So then feel the difference from side to side. I like going that way first. It's better for me. But I have to work on this side more. So we're gonna go the other way. So you're gonna get over, right? And again, I'm taking the time to make sure I'm lengthening and I'm opening. And I want to get that last 5% of suppleness in my intercostal muscles with my inhalation. Even though I'm in a strained position, I want this to remain supple. So I'm letting like the balloon open on the inhalation, and I'm lengthening on the exhalation. And then I'm taking the arm up. Now I can notice the weight change everywhere. So I'm adjusting, right? And then refining my breath in my rib cage. Now when the arm goes this way, things are gonna get heavier, but I wanna stay light. So I'm realizing that the downward energy has to be compensated. So the belly button turns towards the ceiling. You have to balance it. Now you have to extend your shoulder blade back down towards your sitting bones and go beyond your fingertips. Now we're in a position where the depth of your inhalation won't be as great. Don't lose the suppleness. Good, and then come on up. Be in the center. Practice some symmetry. Hands on each leg. So I'm coming forward so I can see you all better, so I can tell you a story about an instruction that I heard in a standing pose that this class is also being inspired by, which it was in the standing pose version of the pose we just did, right? You don't have to do it. Like this is Parsvakonasana. So imagine one leg's this way, one leg's this way, but I'm leaning way over, right? And the front leg is bent, the knee is bent. But there's a great instruction from Gita Iyengar that I heard and I read, don't take dead weight into the front leg. So what I've been doing with this, way I've been teaching this to you today, right, is I'm making sure you're not taking dead weight onto your elbow, right? The dead weight is a curse to prana, right? Like if you lean over and just collapse in there, you're not going to get full expression. So I've been trying to tell you that as you lean over, let's go to the first side. As you lean over, right, I'm telling you to keep this long, from the elbow to the upper arm long, because that's the equivalent of the leg over here, right? Because if I go deaden and just pour like lava, or not lava, but like mud into the hole, I'm not doing yoga. I'm just leaning over. I want to not pour slop into the down arm. I want the down arm to respond to the gravity, to create space, conscious space in the upper arm. So this, when I don't do that, my spine collapses. That's what you meant by dead weight, right? So watch, so here's my chest when I'm taking dead weight. Here's me making this be more open, and watch my spine change, right? That's for the back leg, for the back hip, right? So now do it wrong, let you take too much weight, start to lengthen that upper arm, and then lengthen the spine, feel the rib cage, open, over, and as soon as I go over, this drops. That's okay. Got more work to do. I got more time in 2021 to figure out how to do this better. And now when I do this and make it better, I keep my mind and my consciousness in my sitting bones and feet. When I don't, when I let there be dead weight, I lose connection to my base. Good, and then come on up. Be in the center again. Again. So the idea that when you go down in a pose, if you don't simultaneously go the opposite direction, you'll take dead weight into the limb, right? And as soon as it deadens like that, it's not only making you more heavy, it's actually has the potential for more violence. Okay, it's both. And so now you're leaning over. Again, I'm finding the place where my hand should hook, where my elbow is, right? And I'm watching letting it just be non-yogic. And then from there, I start to open and lengthen, hitting down, lengthening, making sure the rise is happening, even though gravity is forcing me down. Then I communicate that to my spine. I follow. As I start to follow, I'm keeping my awareness in all my legs. Take my arm up. Take it over. Oh, there goes the weight into my forearm. I can feel it. I better respond. And then roll open to keep the rise. So my breath can touch both sides of my rib cage, not just one side. Good, and then come on up. Be in the center. Sue, you have a question? Hold on. I'm trying to unmute you as we speak.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can I keep my arm straight and put
whatever you need to do. So this is where, because I can't see all you, I'm trying to explain and describe the sensations because I can't see what the best way for you to do it is.
Okay.
Right. And so this is where what's good about having to learn this way, Sue, is that you have to be in charge of more of your own pose as you're listening to what I'm saying, because I can't know what's the best going on, especially when there's 26 people on two screens, right? So definitely be in charge of your own yoga pose. And yet don't use that as an excuse to not work hard, right? So that's what I mean about truthfulness is really one of the essences of your yoga practice. Truthfulness coupled with nonviolence. Because truthfulness does not mean pushing harder to your limit all the time. Some yogas learn that way, but so if you don't know my story, I broke my femur bone doing yoga because I kept pushing, thinking that the limit was going to teach me, right? Like the limit of the body, right? Which is a lot of styles of yoga do that. They push into the limit. The thing is what I learned there is that my limit isn't as responsive to them because of my disability. So I have to learn as I approach the limit, right? Like so I'm learning from the space. I mean, sorry for a sports analogy, but if like a outfielder in baseball runs too hard, runs straight into the wall, he's going to hurt. If you know Brian Buxton, anyone that knows the twin, he runs into the wall all the time, right? Because he's not being aware of the space as he reaches his limit, right? And he thinks that he's a better outfielder when he isn't aware of that space. It's not the case, right? But the same thing is true in your own yoga poses, especially as they increase with difficulty. So this is a good question. All right, so I want you to come forward again, but only with one hand. So if you come down on one forearm, whichever, right? I'm going to do it straight up, but I got to watch here. When I go straight out, my shoulder gird, my rotator cuff, I have to watch, right? So in fact, I'm going to do it this way. I can tell it's better if I'm on my forearm. So I'm leaning forward, I'm leaning off to the side, and then I'm gonna grab or whatever, and I'm gonna really turn. So now I'm turning, I'm down, I'm grounded, I'm not collapsed, I'm lengthening and I'm turning. So now for me, I can tell when I do all this extra, I've got more grounding, I've got more down, but I'm gonna have to fight more for the up, right? And so I have to turn up, but I've gotta watch how I fight, right? Because the goal is to make sure my rib cage today can stay supple. So if I strain too much, I crash into the wall, right? If I actually figure it out, ground open, let my rib cage maintain its suppleness so my breath can reach my sitting bones and stay connected to my feet. Now I got to make sure I don't try to take as deep a breath because there's more constriction. But now, because I've got my hand, my arms doing two different things, if I try to open the space between my shoulder blades, something changes. As I stay connected to my sitting bones and feet, and I open, holy cow, I'm feeling things transform right now. Now I'm making sure my breath is staying supple. Good, and then come on, back. Center. So what we're doing now is slightly, just so you know, like when we go over the side, take the arm over the head, that's more like a full standing pose called, oh my God, Parsvakonasana. And by emphasizing this twisting part more, right, then we're doing a little bit more like revolved Parsvakonasana. So again, I'm going to come down on my leg. I'm going to grab the other way. Already I can tell that this shoulder's not as responsive, right? So I got to make sure I don't strain too much on this side. It's not as open. If I go running towards the wall here, I will injure and aggravate my shoulder, right? So I'm actually allowing that it's different on this side and not being pissed about it, right? Like just allow, and I can tell it's right here. I need to get that part of my spine in, right? So now I'm trying to get as ground, so I'm leaned over more. There's more of a fall, right? The turn is more up. So we don't realize I'm trying to teach revolved standing poses right now. Okay, so you're down and you're being open, you're more grounded. Inhale, keep the suppleness of your rib cage. So I can already tell my body right now, my right side of my rib cage, the lower side, isn't as supple as it needs to be, right? And what that reflects is in my presence in my feet, right? I can tell that I'm not as present in my right foot, right? So I'm turning, lengthening, opening, but I'm not cranking so hard that I'm losing the 5% of the top of the inhalation on my rib cage. And as I let that 5% come through me on exhale, I lengthen with it. So I'm trying to open more potential in my pose of in my spine by paying attention to my rib cage. Good, and then come on back out of it. So if that wasn't more physically rigorous, then we're going to do it again because that one should have been more physically rigorous, right? But I'm actually, that while talking in that, I'm having to have a little bit of a moment to make sure I ground, but I'm just more extreme because I was talking. You also need to ground. It turns out the strain of a revolved pose, standing pose, needs to be honored. So that's what I'm doing. All right, so I'm going to come forward again. I'm going to make sure the balance, and I'm going to add a layer, right? want to make sure the balance between my sitting bones and the top of my head, like the downward dog part of this, is staying as full as possible. Then I'm going to reach around and grab my chair. Now, here'd be dead weight. Here'd be open, that has the balance. The fall is too much when I'm twisting from here. So if that means your arm stays down here to get this part of your pose, do that. The farther you go back, that's just more of the window dressing, right? Right. And now, so you're sitting here for a second, and before you really start twisting, I want you to get the suppleness of your rib cage. Because once the rib cage opens, you'll have more awareness in your legs. Okay, so you're watching, and it turns out that has to do with the diaphragm and the bottom floating rib and blah, 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 blah. So now I'm going to start to turn. I'm going to keep that rib cage and get the last 5% into the muscles, and then exhale and turn, trying to bring more of me. So it's funny to watch. So when I teach revolved triangle pose, revolved Prasarkanasana to quote traditional students, everyone thinks the drama's in this arm, like getting it up again, right? No, the real work is here, right? And then, so if you cannot ruin your pose, then take your arm up, right? But I can tell you, it ruins my pose. When I do this, I take dead weight into my bottom shoulder, right? So I'm knowing that I need to practice here, and then I can maybe do my just to here and keep it, and then maybe like that. But again, the importance is the turn. Good. And then from both feet, push off and uncoil. Come on up to center. Whew. And I'm going to go the other way. Down. Grab the chair. Allow that it's freaking different. Right? I will always have work to do in my yoga poses. That's okay. Right? And again, you're trying to, like, I know I'm not lifting my arm on this side. I would totally gum up my pose and make it me vulnerable to fall. So again, I'm trying to turn and open and lengthen. Keeping the intercostal muscles supple on the inhalation and the exhalation. So you can almost see this, your left leg going out that way. That would be more of the pose. So I'm going to see bad yoga, but I'm going to show it, right? I just took dead weight everywhere. Fatigue came way faster. Good, and then uncoil. Be in the center. So one of the ways that you will fatigue your muscles, because it also fatigues your breath, is if you've got dead weight happening in parts of your poses, fatigue will come faster, right? Although it takes work to keep you not having dead weight. So it's not like, oh, it's way easier when you don't take dead weight. It just means you work in more places in your body, right? And then, but then the fatigue and the strain of the pose is more evenly distributed. So be in the center, because we're heading towards Shavasana now. So I got a hand on each leg, right? I'm practicing symmetry. Wrist, elbow, shoulder, hip, knee, ankle. Each side. When I let that be more aware, my head naturally realizes it needs to straighten. Instead of being over like this, like I always am. Symmetry teaches. Soften the jaw, the inside of the mouth. So before Shavasana here, you're trying to activate your emptiness as alert. Because in Shavasana, it's an alert pose without any effort, which is part of what it's teaching you. Good. And then release. So I'm just going to change. I'm going to put my hands like this. This is how I need to be grounded. Soften your jaw, the inside of your mouth, the skin on your forehead. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. It's going to move you through 2021. It is you. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes for the week. So someone asked last week, I think in the chat box, what time does this class? And I try to, and it as close to 11. I do stay on to answer questions, but that's completely optional. So everybody bring your hands together. Namaste. Spirit of me bows the spirit in you. If you want to hold on for a second, I'm going to